Hey everyone, it's Matt. This is going to be a different type of video for me. Uh, I've never made a vlog before, or an experience video, or however you'd call it. But I went to a concert on Friday, and I kind of want to tell people about it. Anyone who's interested in watching, at least. So I went to go see Bill Murray and the home team. Bill Murray was the headliner. The home team was the opener at the rooftop at Pier 17 in New York City. It was on Friday. This was my first time to the venue, and it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful, beautiful space. The backdrop of New York City behind you was perfect. I'll have some pictures and videos and stuff later on. But the show was amazing. Both the bands sounded fantastic. Me and my wife got some footage of the bands. Not a ton. We wanted to enjoy like being there. I got the intro and my favorite song by Bill Murray. I actually haven't gone through my wife's footage yet, but by the time I get to that part of the video, I'll have watched it all. So, I will put time codes in the description if you want to jump around. I'm going to recommend this to the same video to the Warning Army, who's also going to Pier 17 in June. So if they want to see the venue or hear about me getting around the city, which isn't extensive, but maybe see some of the pictures, it might be worth checking out for some of them. Anyway, this venue is relatively new. I haven't been to Pier 17 before. I've been to a number of venues and multiple times in the city and in Long Island. Long Island, Jones Beach Theater, the Paramount, New York City, Madison Square Garden, Barclays Center, Pier 17. There was, I believe, a mall of some sort where Pier 17 is now, until Hurricane Sandy caused some pretty severe damage, which Hurricane Sandy was in 2012. And then for a while there were some development issues in trying to develop the area, but eventually this current space that's there, it opened in July 2018. So now we get to the travel part of my video. And I'm gonna have some clips, but might not be exciting, but maybe for people who aren't from New York, maybe they'll be like, oh wow, that's what it looks like. So yeah, I live on Long Island, and I could not get out of work as early as I wanted to, so I will eventually maybe go into a little more detail about this, but I think I missed there was a first band called Gang, which I missed all of them, and I missed a little bit of the home team, maybe a few songs. So I heard them play for at least a half hour, maybe longer. I wasn't timing anything. So my wife had to go home, take care of the dog. So she took the train from all the way out further on Long Island where I live. I took the train. I left the car at my parents' closer to the city, and we kind of met on the train and took the train in. Of course, that last week there were some fires in or close to Penn Station. I never got the full details, and it kind of messed up Penn Station. So instead of going to Penn Station, which would have been the closest of the three ways to get into the city, it would have been the closest to get to Pier 17. But we went to Grand Central, which isn't that much further. It's like 2 or 3 minutes on the subway. It's not a big deal. So we yeah, we got into Grand Central. We went through Grand Central, subway stations in Grand Central. Again, I'm kind of letting people know who maybe haven't been in New York City. I know there's a lot of people from like, if the Warning Army is watching this, a lot of people who are traveling from far, who might not know that. But yeah, you can access the subway station through Grand Central. You just follow the signs. We took from Grand Central the 4 or 5 train downtown. It was about 3 stops, and we got off at Fulton Avenue. Just so you know, because this is new to me, I haven't been to the city in a bit. The subway, you don't use Metro cards anymore. You don't have to purchase Metro cards. It's all the tap credit cards, or if you have like Samsung or Apple Pay, that's the only way to like access the subway now. So if you're planning on using the subway, make sure you have that or have access to that. I didn't realize until later. I don't use Samsung Pay, but I think I would have preferred to set that up and use that rather than taking out my wallet and use my credit card. Not that like the parts of the city we are in aren't safe, but it's just a comfortability thing for me, I think. So we took the subway 3 stops. It was about a 15-minute ride down to Fulton Avenue. That exit, we didn't have time to look around, and this is actually I've never been to this part of the city before, but we didn't look around. But the subway stop on Fulton Avenue, where you take that train down to, and I believe it's the same stop if you go into Penn and you take the 2-3 down. I'm pretty sure. I didn't look into that. Maybe I'll look and I'll pin it in the comments if people are interested. I'm pretty sure it's the same stop, but you get out right at where the World Trade Center Memorial is. I think it was on the other side of the building. We didn't walk around because we wanted to get to the show. But if you have time and you want to check that out, then maybe that's a cool thing for you to check out. If you're unfamiliar with what that looks like, maybe I'll put a picture right next to here, and maybe so you can see. But I don't have pictures of that because I didn't get a chance to check that out. From there, it was about a 10-minute walk down to Pier 17. It was really cool. Like I said, I've never been in this part of the city. The streets are like super narrow. Maybe like only one car at a time could fit down it. And right before we got to the piers, there was actually a really cool looking, and I'll post a picture of this because I took a picture of this, an Australian pub called, is it Old Mates or something? You'll see in the picture. But when we were leaving the venue, like later that night, the line was out the door, so I didn't look at reviews or anything. We didn't have time to stop at a bar that night, but it looked like it was popping, so maybe check that out. Then, like I said, literally across the street from the bar is the piers, right? The way we came up, I don't remember what block it was that we came up. I was using a app called City Mapper. It helps you get around the city. We come up the street, and we came up onto Pier 16, which is right next to Pier 17. And also, again, I have some pictures and a video of kind of like walking through the area, but the area is pretty nice. And then you see the big building where the venue is, and it's not just a venue. There are like restaurants and stuff on the first floor. I don't know if it was a dog park, but we walked through an area that there were just dogs out off of leashes. I also wanted to show you that there is a section right over here. So if you follow my mouse, if you walked down this block to come from the subway, and you came down over here, this part, there's not a ton of places to eat. This in the middle is like a very cool looking like semi-outdoor bar. But this is like a very historic looking spot. I believe there's a museum over here that's like a seaport museum. Let me see if I could. It's a very like cobblestone. There's a bakery, clothing stores, museum. This is the bar I was talking about.
theater. This part, I didn't walk down this block, so I didn't. I don't really know uh, what it looked like, but I kind of saw down an alleyway back here, probably, and I was like, oh, that area looked pretty cool. I wish I could check that out, and I'm probably gonna try and walk down this way when we go for the Warning show, because it looked very historic and very cool.
Yeah, so then we went in. Well, actually, we took some pictures because literally you're on the pier. It's like you're right next to the water. You might have seen pictures of this place at some point. But they have the big ships. We were like able to they were literally right there. I was taking pictures of those. If you go around the building, you'll see the Brooklyn Bridge in the background. It was gorgeous, and Friday night the weather was perfect. I thought it was gonna be chilly because it's been a little chilly in New York, but I brought a sweater and I felt weird because I had to be that weird guy that like ties a sweater around his waist, and I hate that. And if you do that, I'm sorry, I just called you weird. But I hate that. I don't like the way it makes me look when I do that. So I think I have a picture that I'm gonna post of that, but I don't think that's a flattering picture of myself. But you'll see me. Yeah, so you go around the building. Like I said, you'll see the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's kind of where you enter. We walked up maybe 2 or 3 small flights of stairs to get onto the rooftop, because that's where the venue is. If you're handicapped, I did not look for elevators, so I don't know where the accessibility point is for that. We might have walked right past it. Anyway, so we walk up to the venue, to the rooftop. We come up the stairs, and the stage is to the left. Back against the back of the rooftop is you see the mixing board. To the left, I think it's called the Patreon patio, or it's called the Patreon patio for the Warning show. I don't know what it was called for the Bill Murray show because I didn't look at like VIP type seats. And again, I have some pictures from where I stood. We wound up standing. We're old, right? I mean, not old, but like we're in our late 30s. We didn't want to be up in the crowd and dying and in mosh pits and stuff, so we kind of sat in the back. We stood in the back, maybe like 10 yards in front of the mixing board, which I thought was a great view. I wanted to be close to the mixing board because I know like that's where the sound guys hear the sound, so I thought maybe that'd be like the best spot for great sound. There is so if I'm standing at the mixing board looking at the stage, and like I said, there'll be pictures, so I'm hoping you'll be able to follow this. Patreon patio was to my looking at the stage. It was this way, and then there was a food and drinks spot here, a food and drinks spot to the back here. Food prices weren't as crazy as I thought they would be. I've been to venues in New York City, and they're way worse than that, especially like Yankee Stadium or something. I got like chicken fingers, four chicken fingers, like I think it was $11. They had Heineken Light beers. They had, I believe it was Tecate Mexican lager, which I had, that was good. One thing I will not recommend, my wife couldn't drink that night, so she had a mocktail, and the mocktail was like $11. It was pre-mixed, and then they added seltzer, and she just told me it just tasted like seltzer. So I would recommend against that. So the home team. I've never listened to the home team before I started this channel. I kind of wanted to start the channel when I did because I wanted to check out the home team, and I thought this was like a cool way of doing it. Aside from like the other stuff I checked out. So I knew that Bill Murray was, like, the home team was opening for Bill Murray. And I'd seen probably on Reddit, mostly on Reddit, like, oh, the home team was awesome. They were really good. Like, make sure you like get to the show for the home team because they were awesome. And they were a lot of fun. But that's all the back. Like, I only listened to 5 songs on the channel, and I think they played 4 of them, but I might have missed one. I saw it, Walk This World With Me, because he announced it, and the lead singer, his name was Brian, said it was his favorite song. So that one, I was able to like, oh, I know that I'll know this song, or the vibe of this song, if I react to it. But they were great. A lot of things, one of the things I was also seeing on Reddit, there were a lot of people saying for this tour overall that the sound was really messed up. I would say that the sound wasn't perfect. The sound wasn't perfect, but it was not as bad as I heard it was going to be. And maybe it's just different venue, but usually the sound guys are the same, right? I will say that the bass for the home team was very, very loud. The bass and the drums. It didn't bother me, but it kind of muddied up some of the other sounds. Yeah, but they had a great set. And like I said, I recorded, I think, all of the song Worthy, which I really liked when I was reacting to songs, and I think most of, or like maybe like a verse and a chorus from Overtime. I don't remember if it was Overtime or Loud that I recorded a bunch of, but I'll put it at the end of this. Or maybe I'll put it right here, because that's where it's going. Yeah, I'll put it right here. So I'm gonna pause this for a little bit and let you watch that part.
Everything around you in life, it's a little more than I can write. So be working on this all the time. Oh, what's next? You're all around me, all up in my head. You must think I don't know my way. You wouldn't listen if I ever said. You're stressing me out, and you know that I like what you do. Anything about it, I don't think you about you at all. If you said that you're looking for, I don't think you realize it's something that you can afford. 'Cause all I ever needed is the time to bring everything to life. It's a little more than I can fight. To be working on this all the time. Just go, let it out. Tell me, 'cause I love when you get down. 'Cause shit gets crazy when you make a sound. 'Cause you're that lady, don't be afraid to get loud. Tell me, baby, 'cause I love when you get down. 'Cause shit gets crazy when we make a sound. So do it safely, don't you fuck around. Don't be afraid to get loud. Days a week, you got my remedy. As what you say, you all that energy. Don't tell me you've been creeping. This lately I've been thinking. Yes, you know I'm no good when I've been standing. Something tells me you don't want me knowing everything. But you know I'm worthy. Okay, New York, are you ready for this? Come on, leave your lips. So sing it one more time for me now. You gotta read it twice. I'm freaking out. Tell me what's the truth. I know that it's like before you. You gotta make a move. not the same. Just trying to look the other way. Oh, I can shake this feeling like you can. So something's on the table. I only know connection. So good to find me the truth. You must know how to use the truth. 'Cause I can shake this feeling like you can. But I can show you something new. You just gotta cut it off. Don't let it off. Something I wanna talk about. You gotta reach out. I'm free. Tell me what's the truth. I'm gonna be in love with you. You gotta let go. Don't tell me no. I'm free. New York.
All right, so after the home team finished, that's when I went over to get the food. There were like a bunch of lines, and at first I thought only some lines were for drinks and some lines for food, but all the lines were for food and drinks. I didn't wait long at all, maybe 5-10 minutes, and I thought like between bands is when it would have been packed, but it wasn't that bad. Other food items that I remember that they had, it was popcorn, pretzels, and hot dog. Don't remember anything else. I think they might have had one or two more things on the menu. So if you don't want those things, I would eat before you get there. We were rushing, so I didn't eat before I got there. And then I kind of like scurried back because I was like, I want to make sure I'm like in the right spot to see Bill Murray. I don't want to have to like navigate through. But even though the show was sold out, I didn't feel like where I was standing it was super like crowded. I thought it was going to be a lot worse, especially because I wanted to like stand like not in the front but like in the middle of the stage. I thought that area would have been really bad, but it was fine, and I'll tell you later, it was actually a great spot for us to be. At the end of the show, I mean. So Bill fucking Murray. So my background from Bill Murray is there's another reactor. I'll name him. I mean, I doubt he'll ever watch this. His name is Steve OG. I'm sure if you're a rock fan or a Bill Murray fan, you've watched some of his reactions or all of his reactions. I remember he did like a concert review for Bad Omens, who I've been curious to see. I haven't seen live. And he was talking about how Bill Murray opened for Bad Omens, and they were like his favorite band. And I was like, who the fuck is Bill Murray? Great name for a band. Who the fuck is Bill Murray? And opening for Bad Omens, I just assumed it was going to be like a super heavy band. So I didn't really like look into them at that point. But I believe soon after that is when Bill Murray released Hard to Tell, and that popped up on my YouTube recommendations, and I was like, oh, let me check this out. And considering I was expecting something heavy or close to Bad Omens, it was like, what did I just listen to, right? Because especially Hard to Tell, he's really doing like a country twang voice, and I am a fan of country. I'm not listening to country as much anymore. So, like I said, I wasn't really expecting this Bill Murray to like sound like that, and I was like, maybe it's just this song. So that's kind of when I decided I wanted to like go deeper, but like I didn't know where to start because he's got a huge catalog. So again, I went to like Steve OG's channel, and I was like, where's his Bill Murray videos? And he actually did a longer video where I think he reacted to like 4 or 5 songs. I remember he did, I think Anabolic Spudman was his first song. He checked that out. I think he checked out Absolutely Cranking My Motherfucking Hog. I think he checked out, I don't remember, but he did a bunch of the older ones. And then I remember he went into All Gas with Mitchell Tenpenny, who, as a country like a person who liked country music, I love Mitchell Tenpenny. So when I saw like he had a Mitchell Tenpenny feature, I was like, what? This is awesome. But yeah, then I kind of, that's when I kind of went off on my own, and I was like, okay, let's listen to, I want to listen to all of American Motorsports, and then I found the Atlanta show on YouTube, and it kind of blew my mind even more. Like, I liked the music I was hearing like on the albums a lot, but their live sound was incredible. Their stage presence is amazing. Between and the drummer at that show, Xavier Ware, is like an insane drummer. But like the highlights for me is like just the vibe of Johnny on stage, his stage presence, how good he sounds, how much fun it looks like he's having, and then that in combination with Gabby, who kind of like makes the shows for me, and then Reese just being a nut. It's a great chemistry between those three. I know, like, we had a different drummer at our show, and now they've added like a bass and a pedal steel guy who also does banjo, and it's all like it's like the stage presentation has taken a step up from the Atlanta show. I mean, obviously it was like professionally mixed on YouTube, on the show on YouTube, so I think that sounds a little better, but it was still incredible live. The volume levels for Bill Murray, I would say that most of the show sounded great. I will say the bass and the drums still sounded a little bit loud to me, which drowns out a little bit of the volume on some of the choruses, like when the instrumentals would be loud. And I thought it kind of like muddied some of like the guitar parts when the guitars weren't like tuned really low. So like especially like guitar solos, it was really, for me, I thought pretty difficult to hear like the intricacies of guitar solos. You know, you knew they were happening, but like to hear every note, it was kind of hard. Kind of hard. So that show, and I saw this on clips on Instagram and all over social media, really, how all the lights go out, which was awesome because the lights go out and there's no like full backdrop to the stage, so you see the lights from the Brooklyn Bridge behind, which was awesome. And then Gabby comes out and does like the Halo intro, the Halo song intro on the sax, which was amazing. And then they went into Kinda Hard, and then they went into Twice, which is currently my favorite Bill Murray song. And it was incredible. The crowd energy was fantastic the whole night. Just singing along to literally everything. Set list was kind of a blur. I'll try to put, because I'm gonna mash up videos between me and my wife, so I'll try to put it in order. Oh no, because I could find one of the other set lists. So what actually we did during the show is I pulled up one of the set lists from I don't care about like set list spoilers. I pulled up one of the set lists. I think it was from like the Cincinnati show. It wound up being the exact same set list, so I was able to like go through it really, really nicely. Yeah, like I said, the whole band was stellar. Even though the drums were, and the bass, the low notes were really loud, the drums were fantastic. I know, like I said, I was a really big fan of Xavier Ware in the Atlanta video. But this guy, I think it was, what was his name? I think it was Zach I don't want to get it wrong. Zach Dubé. Oh, Zach Doobie is his Instagram name, that's why. At least I hope that's right. I'm not going to do more research than that. It was Joe Compton on the steel pedal and the banjo, and Nick Edwards on the bass. You know, along with Johnny, Zach, Gabby, and Reese. Yeah, they were all fantastic. Like I said, for me the chemistry just between Johnny, Gabby, and Reese is just it's amazing, perfect, and hilarious all at the same time. Just to see them like just interacting with each other on stage, and just like I was like also saying before, like Gabby was like really like such a highlight for me. Just like the sax, I love, like, because you know on the album, there's not sax on every song, or there's not Gabby on every song. So hearing like where she put in more sax here, more sax there, vocals here, vocals there. When she like she does the flute for the song or two she used the flute for, it's also perfect. It's so good. It's so good. Especially like one of the highlights for me is a song. I would say it was probably my least favorite on the set list. I like the song, but it's like the least favorite, like studio version, least favorite on the set list. The Hogman's Delight. Like Gabby just went off in that song. I forgot how much sax is in that song. And then I think it was at the end of that song where she kind of like goes off on a little solo moment, and it's just like it's great. It's fantastic. So yeah, just going through the set list that we had, like I said, it was the Halo intro, then we got Kinda Hard, Twice, Empty Handed, Hard to Tell, Blindsided. The end, Blindsided, and the end are like two of my favorite songs. So Twice to open, and then those two like so close, it was perfect. Shit Fist, Backbend, Fluoride, Crankin', the Cowboys Heavy Load. I can't believe I just said that on camera. 80/20 Sky Beef, Hogman's Delight, Where to Find Me, All Gas, Rock Bottom, Worst Part of You, I Really Want to Stay at Your House. When I was coming into the tour, I completely forgot about that song because it's not on the album. 2016 Cavaliers, Always Let You Down. They brought out Brian from the home team to do Jeremy's parts for Always Let You Down. Fantastic. Because on the studio version, I don't know if it's Gabby's voice, but if you like listen very carefully, you can like barely hear like a female voice in the background. I believe it's the second verse onwards, but hearing her so prominently doing like the harmonies, and then Johnny and then Brian doing the screams like all together, it was great. It was so good. And then More Than Hate, and then Starfish Spreader, and then Better Help. And they didn't, one of the things I was surprised at, they didn't like do a encore at all. They didn't like leave the stage and come back. I'm not sure if it's because of like the time restrictions, because since Pier 17 is like an open air, and it's in New York City, there are like noise restrictions, so they had to have the concert completely done by 10 o'clock. But it was fantastic. I had a great experience. And as soon as the show ended, so we didn't wait behind anybody at all. So keep that in mind if you're going to the Warning next month. We were out of the venue in 2 minutes. It was great. It was great. So yeah, and so on our way back, we passed that the Australian bar. Like I said, like lined down the block. It was absolutely packed. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to go to a show or to go to the bar after, but I would love to check that place out after the Warning show. And I can't wait to go back. Yes, I had a great time seeing Bill Murray, seeing the home team, and I can't wait to see them again. I'm definitely gonna see them again. It was a great freaking show. But this venue is so cool. It was so cool. I hope we get great weather again next month. But yeah, so now that I talked about it all, I'm gonna post some videos. If you guys want to watch the videos of the of Bill Murray, they'll be right here. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. Otherwise, take care. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching, please leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Take care.
It probably left me too late. A part of me wishes you stayed. And you could be poison the second that I hear your voice. A part of me misses the taste. When I don't hate you the way I should. 'Cause if you walked in right now, you told me to hold you and I would run away, running the red lights. Find a way, finding a reason. Maybe I'm crazy for risking my life. of everything.
What are you gonna do? And are you gonna fix your thing? I need something to recall myself. Over here, still standing still. Tell me if it's all you wanted. I'll keep in mind. Feeling every day. It's not a dream that's taking over. Yeah, I'm wide awake. How can I feel good? Put the finger